Grant Morrison, the Scottish comic book writer and chaos magician, introduced a concept that honestly should fundamentally change how we think about cinema: the hypersigil. Unlike a traditional sigil, a magical symbol charged with intent, a hypersigil is an extended work of art that changes reality through the process of its creation and, well, its consumption. Morrison actually used his comic series, The Invisibles, as a hypersigil to reshape his own life. But if comics can function this way, what about cinema with its massive budgets, collective creation process, and global reach? Consider the possibility. Every film is a potential hypersigil, encoding the desires and intentions of its creators, then, propagating those intentions through millions of minds. This isn't metaphorical. In Morrison's framework, it's literal magic, using art to reprogram reality by reprogramming consciousness. Star Wars might be the most successful hypersigil ever created. George Lucas didn't just make a movie. He encoded a modern mythology that has shaped multiple generations' understanding of good, evil, power, and transcendence. The phrase "May the Force be with you" functions as a mass-distributed magical formula, installing the concept of an accessible universal energy in the global mind. Is it coincidence that mindfulness, Eastern spirituality, and energy healing entered mainstream Western culture after Star Wars? Morrison argues that hypersigils work because fiction and reality aren't separate categories, but rather different frequencies of the same spectrum. When you create a sufficiently complex fictional reality and feed it enough attention, through creators working on it, audiences consuming it, merchandise extending it, it begins to bleed into consensus reality. Marvel's cinematic universe demonstrates hypersigil dynamics at an industrial scale. It's not just telling stories about heroes, it's systematically reorganizing how we think about power, responsibility, identity, and community. When millions of people simultaneously engage with the idea that, with great power comes great responsibility, that principle gets installed in the collective operating system. The MCU isn't just entertainment. It's a coordinated reality rewriting operation. But here's where it gets dark. Hypersigils are a neutral technology. They can be used to expand consciousness or contract it, to liberate or control. The Wolf of Wall Street glorified greed so effectively that it became a recruiting tool for would-be stockbrokers. Despite Scorsese's intentions, the hypersigil escaped its creator's control, manifesting its own reality distortion field. Horror films offer particularly potent examples. The Exorcist didn't just scare people, it manifested a wave of reported possessions and religious conversions. The Blair Witch Project created a mythology so powerful that the fictional town of Burkittsville was overwhelmed by tourists seeking the non-existent witch. These films function as invocations, calling forth the very energies they depict. The implications for filmmakers are, staggering. If you're not just telling stories, but actually casting spells, what responsibility do you bear for what you manifest? Kubrick seemed to understand this. His films function as precisely crafted hypersigils designed to evolve consciousness. 2001: A Space Odyssey installed the idea of technological transcendence so deeply that it shaped how we think about AI and human evolution. Morrison discovered that his hypersigil began rewriting his life in unexpected ways. Fictional events manifested as real experiences, sometimes dangerously so. Film productions often report similar phenomena, strange synchronicities, life imitating art in uncanny ways. Is this just confirmation bias, or are we glimpsing how reality actually works? The streaming age has democratized hypersigil creation. No longer do you need studio backing to cast a reality spell, but, it's also created what we might call hypersigil pollution. Thousands of competing reality rewriting operations cancelling each other out, or maybe even creating these chaotic interference patterns. Is our fractured cultural moment partly the result of too many hypersigils, pulling reality in different directions? The most effective hypersigils seem to work with archetypal energies. Jung's collective unconscious patterns. They don't invent new realities so much as activate dormant potentials. The Matrix worked as a hypersigil because it gave form to something we were already feeling. That reality might be a control system. It didn't create that suspicion. It crystallized it, gave it mythology and language. If we accept cinema as hypersigil technology, we must ask, what reality do we want to manifest? What stories serve as evolutionary catalysts versus control mechanisms? How do we become conscious practitioners rather than unwitting sorcerers' apprentices? Morrison offers a radical possibility. We can use hypersigils to bootstrap new realities, to fake it till we make it on a cosmic scale. Cinema becomes not just a mirror or a lamp, but a reality engine encoding tomorrow in today's dreams. The films we make and watch aren't just entertainment. They're votes for which reality we want to inhabit. Choose carefully. Your attention is more powerful than you know.